not quite. Now we're live.
Okay, great. All right, guys. Well, welcome to the discussion for this week. Quite a bit to read about, especially about diversity. And I kind of wanted to pose a question. And you guys can feel free to share if you want. But I was curious to hear if we had any experiences personally that we'd be willing to share where we felt discriminated against in one situation or another. I can start. So my wife had tried many times to get into student housing management in Rexburg, if you guys know a little bit about that. Do you?
No.
Oh, why would someone want to do that? Okay, so basically, some housing for single students will hire a couple to manage the property, and they normally hire the wife to do office hours, and then the husband may do like maintenance and just kind of other things like that. And my wife, having worked in an office environment for 2 years, having been a former student of BYU, we thought she'd be a shoo-in. We had friends and family and everybody that worked for different companies in the area, and so we had interview after interview. And this one time she was hired by a company, I won't say, or not hired, sorry, interviewed by a company. And basically, after the interview, they mentioned that she relied a little bit too much on her husband and was like not really what they were looking for because she was pregnant. And
Wow.
that's not like discrimination against me, but it was definitely for her, and I was really mad for her about that. And so we felt in that situation that we were, that they just, and that's against the law as far as I know, according to our reading. So I don't know. Did you guys have any like situations like that you would want to share? If not, it's okay.
I've never had any discrimination in a workplace. I've had discrimination when I've gone to do other things, but never in a workplace situation.
Oh, never in the workplace? Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. Nothing comes to mind that I've experienced personally.
And
okay, good.
The only
well,
thing
good. I'm glad.
My only experience has been more union than, not meeting the qualifications for the union to get a job because, I hadn't worked in the school district I was trying to get a job with, and so it's not really the same thing, but it just makes it hard to get experience when you can't even get hired on to get that experience. So.
Oh yeah. I know that.
But yeah,
that feels like.
nothing as far as protected classes.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. So I just wanted to segue into part one here, where we start talking about the diversity paradigms. And so in the reading we talked about a few paradigms here: assimilation, differentiation, and integration. Would one of you want to tell us a little bit about assimilation? Maybe Kim, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I'm just trying to cover. Well, so in the PowerPoint it just says assimilation. We are all the same, and then in the reading, let's see. I feel like I'm having a brain fart, and I know I read all this. But so in the thing, it says African American MBAs often find themselves marketing products to inner-city communities. Hispanics frequently market Hispanics work for Latin American subsidies, and that said that doesn't really work. But this diversity should be understood as a very perspective and approaches to work that our members of different identity groups bring. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just kind of what. So I mean, because diversity more than just looks and people are. It's more than that. So Yeah. So
It
don't
almost
discriminate.
kind
Everyone's just all the same. We're all one big happy family.
it
And
kind
you
of
said that's
adopts
for the
the idea.
assimilation?
Yeah, that was assimilation. Oh no, is that?
That's differentiation, where you hire like African Americans to specifically market to African Americans, or you hire a Chinese person to work in the Chinese assimilate. So that's celebrating differences, but they're not really celebrating differences.
Well, it's the idea of color blindness, right? Like there is no. We need to see it as there is no color, and everybody's basically the same.
And
So
that they can bring more to the table than just what's unique to their background or ethnicity. Like you said, they're marketing just to Hispanics are hired to market to Hispanics or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But they bring more than just that. They have a set of skills that are, broader than just their own background, their own ethnic background, or.
Yeah, exactly.
I was actually reading from the wrong paper. I'm sorry.
It's
So
okay.
because I was looking, I was like, what? But it is on the same page. Because it's like, the equal opportunity, fair treatment, recruitment, compliance. I just look at that, equal opportunity for everybody. So there would be discrimination, fairness, which would be the assimilation one. I just read it earlier on the page.
Thanks, Kim. Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I think no. There's a really good segment on page 5. I just want to briefly mention it's the page 5, second the row on the left, or on the left, and then it's a paragraph that starts without doubt.
Uh-huh.
Without doubt, there are benefits to this paradigm. It does tend to increase demographic diversity in an organization, and it often succeeds in promoting fair treatment. So here we can see, pretty simply put, that if we're talking about being colorblind, we're not basically seeing it as color as more as human beings. So in that way, it's really good. But then it talks a little about its limitations, and so the first of these is that the colorblind, gender-blind ideal, to some degree, built on the implicit assumption that we are all the same and we aspire to being all the same. And under this paradigm, it is not desirable for diversification of the workforce to influence the organization's work or culture. So what you end up with is most likely kind of a blank slate culture. And I've experienced this personally in the workplace. The company should operate as if every person were of the same race, gender, and nationality. It is unlikely that leaders who manage diversity under this paradigm will explore how people's differences generate a potential diversity or affect ways of working, leading, viewing the market, managing people, and learning. So it has its drawbacks. Anybody have anything to add to that before we move on?
I was really, when I was reading through this, and this was a hard read. I thought it was really hard to understand what they were trying to say. I liked it better when they kind of went into the mini case study in it, and but as I was reading through it, I thought, and maybe I'm just really naive, I don't know, but I couldn't believe that there are still companies out there that hire somebody just because they are a woman. It doesn't matter what their qualifications are, that they're hiring them just because they're a woman. Or they're hiring, somebody from India because all Indian people are technologically savvy. I had a hard time. Right. It was just very foreign to me that this was still an issue. I guess I thought this was more something back in the 60s and 70s. I didn't realize that we were still dealing with it on such a broad spectrum today.
Yeah.
That actually happens in my husband's profession. My husband's a PA, and when he was applying for jobs, he applied at this place, and I think it was a women's clinic. And my husband being a male, they called and they were like, no, we really just want women. And it's just kind of like, really, like, because there's people who don't care, but that's just how they work. So.
Wow.
Well, but see, I can understand that because as a woman, I only like to have women doctors doing, the gynecological stuff. I don't want a male doing that. And so if it's a women's clinic who is catering to women's problems, then most women feel more comfortable with a woman doctor or a woman PA. So I kind of get that. Is it right? No. But is it, are they wanting to attract the most patients?
That's true.
My dad's a PA, a retired PA. So.
Very cool.
Wow. Okay.
So Matt, there was one thing that I did mark that I wanted to show about that assimilation. So on the top of page 5 in that second paragraph where it says not only discrimination and fairness paradigm insists everyone is the same, but with its emphasis on equal treatment, it puts pressure on employees to make sure the important differences among them do not count. And the thing is, we're always taught to try our best or do stuff like that or improve ourselves. But when everyone's on the same slate, it's like there's no reason to try to make yourself better or work harder because we're the weakest link. So.
Yeah, or maybe you're not contributing something different.
Like a fresh idea or whatever. You're not bringing anything new.
Yeah, because you're too busy trying to fit into the mold.
So does our doohickey problem, fall under this because we're all going to be given the same grade?
I don't know. Maybe.
We should put that as one of the issues or problems that should be fixed.
No, I'm just teasing. I'm fine with it. We all do the work. We all get the same grade. I just, when you read that out loud and differences don't matter. Everyone starts with the same slate and everyone gets the same. Sounds like communism a little bit.
Yeah.
Or
it's almost like socialism, free for everybody. Sounds like.
Well, law consecration is a little bit like that, but. Alrighty. Awesome. Okay. All right, great. Thanks for that. So let's move on to access and legitimacy, which is differentiation. That one's a little trickier. I was able to pull out a portion here that explained it pretty clearly. Let's see if we can find it here. So on page 7. I wanted to talk a little bit about...
Can you guys hold on a second? I have to go check on something right back, okay?
Oh, sure.
Sorry, like 2 seconds.
Okay, that's all right.
Is this pertaining to differentiation? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
We celebrate differences.
Sorry about that. Good.
Alrighty. So celebrating differences. So right here on, I wanted to read the paragraph that's in the lighter color on page 7.
Mm-hmm.
Starts, we are living in an increasingly multicultural country, and new ethnic groups are quickly gaining consumer power. Our company needs a demographically more diverse workforce to help us gain access to these differentiated segments. We need employees with multilingual skills in order to understand and serve our customers better and to gain legitimacy with them. Diversity isn't just fair, it makes business sense. So I just wanted to hear a little bit from you guys to hear maybe what you think about that, any experiences you've had, with jobs that you feel that you had an opportunity to work around, multilingual situations, and if you felt maybe it was a little shoehorned at some point, like sometimes a company had to hire somebody like that. Any experiences you guys want to share about that?
I can't think of a particular situation, but just my initial reaction to that sentence. I mean, I think that it's true that, we're operating more globally, like, with technology and the internet, and just I just feel like that's a fair thing to say, that it does make business sense to be able to have employees that speak other languages and can reach more audiences, and I just feel like that's the natural progression of business on a global level, so.
I agree with that. The problem with the paradigm is that they are pigeonholing employees. Oh, you're Chinese. We're gonna, only allow you to market to Chinese, or. But what I thought of too is, how many times do you hear of missionaries who've served a foreign mission coming home and then they're able to get a job because they speak that language? And that's actually outside the paradigm, because maybe they're American and they're not a native Spanish speaker or native Portuguese speaker, or whatever, but they're hired because of those skills, and they're expected to use those skills to further the business.
I have if you don't mind me sharing an example pertaining to exactly that you just mentioned. My brother is a police officer, LAPD, and this was in the early 90s when they had the affirmative action. They were really having to hire a certain amount of blacks, a certain amount of Hispanics. Like they were not hiring any, Caucasian men. And my brother had just returned home from his mission in the Philippines, and because he spoke Tagalog, he was an exception, because he had something to offer other than just being another white male to hire on the police department. So that really benefited him, and he was able to work in the gang units using his Tagalog for the Filipino gangs and such. So just an example of that skill. It's
Is he still on the force?
Yeah, he's been on the force for over 21 years. He's a lieutenant, and he works undercover. He's the vice coordinator for all of the San Fernando Valley. So he does all
vice. Wow.
Yeah. So he's, he loves it, and it's great. But he knows he would not have had that job if it hadn't been for that that skill. So
lucky him.
Yeah. Huge blessing.
That's awesome. So talking a little bit more about the negative side of this paradigm, does somebody want to start reading at the paragraph again, which is all the way at the bottom on the left column, and then stop at, that whole paragraph?
If the French team?
No, starting with again on the bottom of page 7. Sorry,
again,
column on the left. Yeah.
Sorry. So again, the paradigm has its strengths, its market-based motivation, and the potential for competitive advantage that it suggests are often qualities an entire company can understand and therefore support. But the paradigm is perhaps more notable for its limitations in their pursuit of niche markets. Access and legitimacy organizations tend to emphasize the role of cultural differences in a company without really analyzing those differences to see how they actually affect the work that is done, whereas discrimination and fairness leaders are too quick to subvert differences in the interest of preserving harmony. Access and legitimacy leaders are too quick to push staff with niche capabilities into differentiated pigeonholes without trying to understand what those capabilities really are and how they could be integrated into the company's mainstream work.
That's great. Thank you for that. So that says it all right there, and we've said those things a few times in regards to that. So it's a step in the right direction, but it isn't quite there. So.
Well, I really think it's to a company's detriment to not explore further what people's capabilities are, they're shooting themselves in the foot when they, like in the example they gave in here about the bank that, they weren't successful on the international market until they hired nationals, French nationals, to work in the bank.
Yeah.
Well, like it mentioned, what happens if, all of them quit? Then what? It's one thing to start it out, to open a market with nationals, or open a bank in Chinatown and only hire Chinese initially to get it started. But you have to look at the long term, and you need to integrate other races and other sexes and whatever.
Yeah, those are some good points. It is detrimental to companies for sure. And so how would integration differ in your guys' opinion?
Integration differ than the other two?
Yeah, I mean, what does integration do differently?
Well, I just, based on the definition, it's like, yes, everyone has all their differences, everyone has their own little, their own little cliques, but, but everyone comes together to get the job done. At least that's what I got from it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a commitment to diversity, and it's accepting that everybody, it's celebrating the difference. And,
I agree. Go ahead. Finish. You can finish your sentence.
No, it's okay. You go ahead.
Like you said, you're celebrating their differences. It's not just like hiring on to appease everybody and to create a harmonious work environment, but let's utilize those differences. Let's not just accept you because you're different, and but let's utilize those differences and integrate them to be more successful. So it's not just about like the company looking good because we're hiring all these ethnicities, but we're utilizing them to be the most effective.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I think affirmative action, there's a lot of problems with affirmative action. If you are forcing a company to have, a 25% female employee population, and then you also need to have a 55% ethnicity population, whatever the numbers are, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're able to hire the best qualified workers for that job. And
Correct.
I think, but on the other hand, there has to be something there because of, instances, the good old boys, or like in our doohickeys where it talked about all of the managers were all friends and relatives and all male.
Well, it's funny. When my husband was in PA school, he actually, because you have to interview for the school, and when he got to school, he looked at other people, and his class was predominantly female, but he was saying there's about one or two people in the class who he felt, in his opinion, should not have made it to PA school, which is judgmental. But the thing is, those people tended to be they weren't white or or African American. They were either Indian or or Asian. It was something that wasn't the norm, and it was almost like, well, in order for us to succeed, we have to be have a diverse body of students. And to me, it's I'm like you're almost detrimental to that student, because if they don't pass their interview or their qualifications just to be diverse, is it right to let them into school just for diversity's sake? I don't know, but.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's kind of like in the TED Talk with Melody Hobson. She used the example of the ESPN, the guy that was hiring some people, and they're like, should I hire the minorities or should I hire the people that are really good at the position we need? And he says yes, to both.
Both, right?
Yeah.
See, and that's what I was gonna say is if you're trying to diversify your employees, you have an open position and you're going to interview for the position, and two candidates are both equally educated, equally capable, but one's, from India and the other one is Caucasian, and you already have a full staff of Caucasian. I mean, they're equally qualified. You know, they both can do the job. They both have lots of talent to bring. But so that's what I'm saying. I don't think that, you know, ethnicity should win out over skill and talent. I feel like, you know, they have to be qualified. That first and foremost, they have to be qualified, and then you can diversify. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Definitely.
I think both. You know, not one or the other, both.
So
Yeah,
what
that's great.
happens?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, what happens like in Melody's talk where she said, you know, we want to get to the point where when you walk in a boardroom, it's the majority of it is women and minorities or different ethnicities, and then the white Caucasian is the minority in the room.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
what happens? Do they become a protected class then? Are they being pushed out because now they're in the minority?
Yeah, that is a good question.
Well,
I
I
would.
think they do. I think absolutely. Like they're, you know, if you're looking at the actual definition of minority, it's the, you know, the fewer number, and there's always going to be someone who's, you know, there's always going to be a minority group, right? So eventually it will
Yeah.
be the Caucasian, you know, white male will be the minority.
Well, I know that there are movements out there that are actually trying to do away with just the term minority altogether, or at least not referring to, you know, not I guess not acknowledging that it is the minority, I guess, which is interesting. But this is a good segue right into part 2, which actually is the color bravery portion of it. And so, what do you guys think she meant when she used the term color brave, and why would she want to replace that with color blindness?
Well, I kind of like what she said about, you know, and, you know, because you hear people, I'm colorblind. And at first I was like, well, okay, well, then that's a genetic disorder. But then I realized what they were saying. And, you know, and I was like, oh, how cool is that? You know, you don't see color. And then when I was listening to her and she was saying how, like, dangerous that thought is, I was, you know, kind of like, oh, okay, you know, so I learned something from that, you know, because it's, you know, we're, I guess, tiptoeing around the issue of, you know, of this race or that race. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's very good. What do you guys think color braveness would look like, in the workplace?
I think it boils down to hiring the best person for the job. That you're not looking at whether or not somebody is Asian or white or black. You are looking at who is best for the job. And then regardless of the color of somebody, that's who you hire. You know, you have to stick up for the choices that you make. You have to be willing to defend.
I agree with that. I think, and I don't know if this is off topic or if I'm making an assumption, I don't know, but some of the minority groups may feel they don't have that skill set, or they're not as capable of the job because they've been denied opportunity or education or whatever. So that's why I think some minority groups will feel that the white man will always be on top, or they'll always be the ones being hired because they've been, I guess, given the opportunity for education and the opportunity for, you know, experience. And so, do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, it's that whole Black Lives Matter movement right now.
Yeah,
well,
but all lives matter. But you're right.
Right, exactly.
That's the slogan is Black Lives Matter. It's like, no, all lives matter.
I think there is an All Lives Matter group that was an answer to Black Lives Matter. Actually,
Good.
yeah. I don't remember them making headlines at all until they bum rushed Bernie Sanders his rally. At least I had never really heard of him until then. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think
I 100% agree that it's the person who's capable the most, the most capable, the most skilled, the most qualified, absolutely should get the job. I'm just saying others will say, and they will say that they've been denied opportunity for education and for opportunity to grow and be promoted and, gain that experience. So, I don't know.
Here's something interesting too. Yes, I would agree that there are definitely minorities in our country who, I mean, really, they're not minorities by numbers, but, minorities maybe by opportunity. But there are opportunities out there. You have to be proactive in wanting to find these opportunities. When we were looking for scholarships for my son to apply to, do you know how many scholarships are out there for women, for gay and lesbians, for black people, for Asian descent? There are so many scholarships available for people, and I would say there's more for those other people than there are for white males. So there are opportunities out there. They just have to seek them out, and they have to want to change their life to be able to have the opportunities.
Yeah, you can't blame other people. You have to do it. You got to do it yourself and do the work.
Yeah.
I agree.
It can be tough to not play the victim, in certain situations too. That takes some maturity to do that.
Yeah.
All right, great. Well, do you guys feel like have you ever been in a situation where you gained where you were in a group that had diversity, and if you have, do you feel like the diversity of that group contributed to the effectiveness of that group?
The only time, so I grew up in Rexburg, predominantly white. The only time
the
only time I dealt with someone of a different race was on my mission. I had an African American, actually she was Afro-Caribbean, she was from the Caribbean islands. And
cool.
I will actually tell you, I taught more people that were of the same race than I'd ever taught in my whole mission. And not to bash or anything like that, but for us it was a much bigger opportunity than I'd ever had with any other companion. So in that aspect, it was beneficial for us.
That's awesome.
So it was beneficial for the church. So.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So you were able to teach others who maybe they felt they could relate because they weren't. It wasn't just two white girls from Rexburg. It was that diverse and that I can relate because she's like me or she's
Yeah, exactly. Well, and she could spark up conversations about about where she grew up, or she would always talk to people about her hair because she had a fro, and so she would always get that, and that's how she started conversations with people all the time. And I was like, man, I don't have a fro.
Did you want one?
I thought it was no. Well, the humidity is really good, and I have blood in my hair. It's pretty fantastic, but still. No, so in that aspect, I really appreciate it because it gave us it just opened my eyes of what a potential she had that I didn't realize. So
interesting.
Yeah.
I had similar experiences on my mission, or rather, I think I had companions that had similar experiences. I've had an experience in my life that kind of makes me a minority in some groups, and nowadays the direction it's going, it's becoming more of a majority. But my parents are divorced. And so serving a mission and having companions, from families that had it all kind of put together, kind of made me feel like a minority in that regard. But in that minority, it gave me more experiences. I felt like where I've experienced what the real world can really do to you, or what it can really be like, as opposed to the bubble, as they say. You know what I mean? It was interesting. It was interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Kim. So a couple more questions regarding the color bravery here. Many companies still have problems with outright discrimination. And how have you ever worked for or observed a company where there are outright discrimination problems? And if so, what was that experience like?
I never have.
Well,
Me
Melanie,
neither.
you said you were involved in what was it, a union?
A union, yeah. So I was trying to, I was working for a school district, and I was trying to change jobs to a school district that was closer to home. And
Okay.
even though I had a couple years at another school district of experience, they didn't want to consider me for a job in my home district because I didn't have any experience in the district. They would rather hire someone who just subbed temporarily than someone who had experience. Ultimately, though, I did get the job. It just wasn't as quick as I wanted.
Okay.
And with unions, it's very, like, I had tried to apply for another job with more hours still. It was with food services. And so my job only was like 3 hours a day, and I was trying to apply to something that was 5.5 hours a day. And
Oh, okay.
this other gal in the kitchen that I worked with also was, sorry about the dogs, was also she applied for the same position. And she got it because she had more experience, or she had worked for the school district for a couple of years longer than I have. But the problem was, I was the better worker. Within, a couple weeks after the school year started, she was having major personality conflicts with the manager in her kitchen, which they had already previously had these same kind of problems working in a different kitchen together. And yet, because she had the seniority, she got the job, rather than putting someone in there that they knew would work out better personality-wise. And
Wow.
it came back to kick them in the rear end, because they had to get the lawyers for the school involved, and it was just a big mess. And they ended up losing me as an employee because they couldn't give me more hours. So instead, I went and got a better job.
Wow.
Jeez.
I don't
I
know.
think that
Everything
be
I've heard
very,
about unions. Oh, sorry. Be very.
they're very discriminatory.
Okay. Yeah, almost everything. I don't have any personal experience with unions, but almost everything I've heard has not been good. So.
Unions and HOAs.
What's
Say
HOA?
that again.
Homeowners associations.
Oh yeah, okay. I have heard
Oh,
a few
jeez.
things. Yeah. Alrighty. So thank you for answering that question. And then the next question is referencing the ESPN president by saying yes to the answer. So we kind of covered that already. Great. So that moves us on to the final part here, part 4. And this is in reference to counseling, which is basically a direct discussion about Elder Ballard's talk about church council. Did you guys get a chance to read that or watch that?
I haven't.
I did. I really liked the things that he talked about in there, as far as the experiment that he did with the bishops, and asked them, here's the situation, how would you solve it? And the one bishop is like, well, I would do this, I would do this, I would do this. Well, he made all the decisions without getting everybody's input. And I thought it went really well with the talk in conference this weekend by Russell M. Ballard about how women, we have a voice in the church, and we need to be counseled more with, and our voices need to be heard.
Yeah.
Is that the same one where they're having a meeting and they couldn't figure out what direction to take, and finally they asked like to release the Senate president who was sitting over in the corner quietly?
Yes.
And then she mentioned, okay, because I wrote that down in my notes and I was like, what was that from? But then she said something and it totally like led the conversation in a different direction, which made it better.
Right.
Yeah. So yes. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that's really cool. Did you guys feel like the council that he described was following the integration paradigm, which would be, I guess, the desirable out of the three paradigms we discussed?
I think so, because he was asking, he wanted the bishops to get everybody's opinions, to have their experience, and even he said when he was, he'd been a member of 12, a council of 12, and they could go in and they could, or maybe I'm confusing these with other talks from conference, I don't know. But
I know, it's so close together.
There is a lot.
But
so
just that they can go in and they can discuss it, and they can have differing opinions, but ultimately it comes down to everyone does agree. You see each other's viewpoints, and it's just important to really understand what everybody brings to the table. Maybe somebody knows something about a particular family that hasn't been brought to the bishop's attention yet. You don't know what other information people have if you don't ask for it.
Very good.
Well, and I really liked in his talk, and I'm not sure where it is in the talk, because I have it pulled up, but I don't know where it's at, but he says, when we support one another in church councils, we begin to understand how God can take ordinary men and women and make them into extraordinary leaders. So when I read that, I was like, I was thinking, if we support one another, and our strengths and weaknesses, everything tends to work out better.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how do you guys think a bishop could use diversity in his councils to help the ward out? How could he use diversity in his councils?
For some reason, I've written down in my notes, lead and teach what is not known or realized. And so I think that, with the bishop, I think if he, kind of follows that, because maybe, I don't know where I was going with that. I just looked at that and it made sense, but you're asking a question.
I know, it's very good because I mean, a bishop is really about delegation, I would imagine. I haven't been one, but he's only going to know what's being reported.
That's true. I have an example to share if you guys want. So I'm a Cub Scout den mom, and we have another den leader. She's my leader, and we had released a couple who was in charge of the older boys, the Weeblos. So when they were assigning a new calling, they were going to fill it with, again, another female. And I said to a member of the bishopric, I said, you guys are inspired. You guys are listening to the promptings of the Spirit. So, I'm not going to say one way or another what your decision, if it's wrong or right. I mean, you guys are listening to the Spirit. But I will inform you that it is very helpful to have a priesthood leader in the Cub Scouts, because if it's just run by women, then we don't have that priesthood influence, and we don't have a lot of these boys, some of them have single mothers, they don't have a father figure, and I think utilizing the priesthood, because some of these priesthood members have grown up being a Cub Scout, they know firsthand, and they can lend their expertise. We've got the den mom part covered. Like, can we get a male leader in here? And the bishopric appreciated my input. He said, I never thought about that. They're just trying to fill it with women, and they thought women would be great den moms. But guys can be den moms too. and they have a lot to bring, and these little boys need them, I think, you know.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
So in that scenario, you know, the bishopric was informed and of something they would otherwise not know, you know, or not think about.
Great. That's a good example of that. Thank you.
I think we have to be careful when we talk about diversity in the church. And I agree. I mean, there's certainly been situations when I've been in primary that there's a need for priesthood leadership in primary as well. You know, like you said, there's a lot of single moms out there who have these boys who don't have a good male role model, and that's great. But you know, if you turn it around the other way too, you have these, you know, give women the priesthood people. You know, diversify the church. You need more, and it was talked about in conference too. You know, there were people who were upset that we had, you know, why do we have old white males be apostles? Well, there's a very good explanation for it. You know, they have more experience than a 20-year-old. You know, they have life experience. They know how to reason through things better, have a more level head. So, you know, diversity is important, but it has to be diversity under the Lord's ways.
That is true, and I will say though that the Lord has turned to youth in different situations. When
David.
Yeah, moldable young minds have their place. You know. So that's awesome. Last question, and they're looking for just to answer from each of us, and I'll start. It says, have you seen bishops or other church leaders do this, which is referring to using diversity. And so Leslie shared her experience. In regards to what I've experienced as far as bishops utilizing diversity, I've actually seen, I served my mission in England, and if we want to talk about minorities there, there's a really big influx of Middle Eastern immigrants in England, and England has a large tie historically with India and other parts of the Middle East. And I served in a ward, and we were involved in the ward council where one of the bishopric members, the second counselor, he was formerly Muslim or Islamic, and the stuff that he would contribute was just invaluable, and both culturally and religiously. He inspired me to actually read the Quran on my mission, which I did, and it really opened my eyes to not only what other world religions have to offer, but the way that he would attack problems and make suggestions within the ward really just really helped a lot of people, I felt like, in that ward. And that was a good experience that I had as far as that's concerned. So do either Melanie or Kim, do you guys have anything to share about that?
You know, the only thing, you know, I'm going to bring up conference again because, you know, it is fresh on my mind. But I can't remember which session it was, but it seemed like talk after talk after talk was given by people who had been converted later in life. That they weren't your typical Utah white Mormons who had been born and raised in the church with, you know, 5 generations, daughters of pioneers type of a thing. And, you know, I think that we, as the church spreads out throughout the world, people need to see that, you know what, this person didn't have the gospel growing up. This person didn't serve a mission because they weren't converted till later. This person isn't your typical family with 10 children and, okay, maybe 10's a little much, but you know what I mean? That people around the world need to see that we are a diverse church, whether or not, people are always going to bring up the negatives and always going to look for ways to tear us down, but we are a diverse church. There's so much experience, and we just, as a bishop, he needs to learn how to tap that experience and to make it work for his ward.
Wise words. Anything to add, Kim?
I just, you're talking about diversity in bishops, and there was one bishop on a mission, and he just was, he was really good. He was a really good people person, and so it didn't matter what your culture or whatever, anything was. He just kind of made everyone feel welcome. And there was actually a woman who wouldn't even come to our ward because we were predominantly white, but just the way the bishop was with the person, I just, and she just felt a lot more comforted and things like that. I mean, that really doesn't have, I guess, much to do with diversity, but I don't know. I think bishops have a lot to offer. But.
Yeah, it's awesome. Great, guys. Well, that completes the questions here. So, thanks for contributing your comments. I thought it added a lot to the lesson, so I appreciate it. Who wants to lead next time? Do we have somebody?
I think it's me.
Okay. Great.
Okay, what do we want to do about this doohickey?
Do we want to work on it tonight? Or do we want to work on it some other time this week? Probably not Thursday, because we have that class meeting on Thursday. So.
Oh, I have a quick question, because this is the first time I've had a successful chat with you guys, because I had the problems last week. And but are we meeting like this once a week or twice a week?
I think with the doohickeys coming up, we should meet again this week if we can. Okay. We normally just meet once. Normally.
Okay.
I think we should try to meet again this week. With the project we can do tomorrow, next week, and it being at least 10 pages long. The fact that it has to be between 3,000 and 4,500
it's not
words.
going to be 10 pages. No,
I think it's like 5, right? Maximum 5.
Oh.
Yeah.
He gave a word limit. He said it had to be so many words.
Right, and he initially said like 35 to 5,000, and then he took it down to 3 to 45.
Yeah, 3,000 to 4,500 words, which is still 10 pages double-spaced.
Oh, that one he wants double-spaced? Okay.
Well, so if it is double-spaced, it'll be 10 pages. If single-spaced, it'll be 5 pages,
Gotcha, okay.
So, that's 4,500 words. So, but he said that the bigger the paper, the better. But he did leave a link for that the helper paper. Yes, example paper.
Okay.
Under his lesson intro or whatever it was.
His Google Hangout that the week introduction. He just posted it today, and there's an attachment.
It's also under it's also on iLearn too.
Oh, okay.
Because that's where I got it from. It's under. Sorry, my computer's being really slow, but it's in one of the little tabs for this week. So.
Well, it's pretty available almost any night.
On the bottom.
I cannot do Friday night.
Okay.
Okay, I was going to say I can do tomorrow night at the same time or Friday night at the same time. If you can't do Friday, I can't do Thursday, unfortunately, because I have Cub Scouts, but I am available tomorrow at the same time.
Okay.
You guys want to try
I
for
can do
tomorrow?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So maybe we can, if we all have a chance to look at that sample paper and get an idea of what he's looking for, and then I've gone into the Google Doc that Matthew started, and Kim said she's gone in, and maybe we can just start, maybe outlining ideas on the doc. That was kind of my thought when I started writing things down, is if we outline, then it's going to be easier to assign out sections.
I agree.
That sounds good.
So,
let's just plan on meeting here tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay, at 8 o'clock again. Do you want me to set it up again for tomorrow night?
Do we have to
Yes.
Or
record
do you
that
just,
one?
we don't. So do you just want to do it on the Hangouts on Air? Or the regular Hangout, since we don't have
Yeah.
to record it?
Well,
Yeah.
you could still do on air. You just don't have to push record. It doesn't matter.
Well, I think the other one runs a little bit smoother
Oh,
than
okay.
the on air.
I wasn't aware of that, so that works.
Okay, great. Well, I'll
Okay.
be on tomorrow then.
So 9 p.m. Mountain
Okay.
Standard Time, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
All right.
See you guys
See you
tomorrow.
tomorrow night.
Okay, bye.
Bye.